Hello guys, so today we're going to learn a little bit about quote integration. This is actually one of my favorite lessons because I think once you learn how to integrate a quote, it becomes a really integral part of your essay and it makes analysis a lot easier to do. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some late night comedy, mostly because I think that this is a really easy way to see what quoting looks like in the wild. So this is from Last Week Tonight by Tom. So this is him talking about the census. And one of the things is that once you know what quote integration looks like, it's going to sort of ruin the way that you watch TV because you won't be able to stop noticing when people do it. Obviously, a lot of these late night comedy shows and news shows in general are written sort of like essays. They have a thesis statement, in this case, the census, that they're trying to talk about, and they're using evidence from other outside texts in order to support their thesis statement. So, for instance, we can see this happening right here. So you can see him sort of saying, with the latest news coming just this week, and then we go into a news story. This is sort of exactly the same way that you're going to be using a source in your own writing, where you go from you saying, let's take a look at this, and then you go into the source. And you can see that we even have over here in the corner CNN. So we have where the source is coming from. We have a timestamp on it. We can see even later on in the show where they're pulling quotes out, and those pulled quotes have important information on them. They have a date, they have numbers, they have the place where it's coming from, they even have the title, the article where it's coming from. All of this stuff is showing you the evidence that a quote has and giving you the source where you get that evidence from. This is exactly what you're going to be doing in your essays. So, when to quote. Quote when the thing you're quoting says what you want to say better than you can. For example, in Anna Karenina, Alexei Karenina does not like or respect women, as he states all too clearly. Women, simply as women, were frightening and repulsive to him. Alexei's feelings from the time Anna tells him of her affair are entirely selfish. So we have this thing that we want to prove, that Alexei Karenina does not like or respect women, and then we have the quote from the source that proves the thing that we just said. All women, simply as women, were frightening and repulsive to him. That is a great quote. That proves exactly what we're trying to say. And so this acts as evidence for our argument. So yeah, quote when the thing you're quoting says what you want to say better than you can. If they can't say what you want to say better than you can, that's when we paraphrase. When to quote. Quote when you're citing specific numbers, statistics, or little-known facts. For example, India is home to a variety of dangerous terrain, making elections logistically difficult. So this is our topic sentence. We have this thing that we want to prove, that India is home to a variety of dangerous terrain, that it makes elections logistically difficult. So we go to find a quote that proves that thing. Among those remote locales is the country's highest polling place, 15,256 feet above sea level, found in a village in the Spiti Valley of the Himalayas where just 48 voters live. Election officials must provide an efficient system to facilitate 1.3 billion voters. So yeah, we have this thing that we're trying to prove, that there's a lot of dangerous terrain. We have numbers to prove it. We have where just 48 voters live to say it's logistically difficult. We follow it up by saying we have to do this over and over again for 1.3 billion voters. So if you have a specific number or statistic, that is definitely worth a direct quote, particularly if it seems outlandish or crazy or it supports your point in some way. How to quote. So this is the important bit. If you're taking notes on anything, take notes on this slide. First, we have our lead-in sentence that provides context and signals that a quote is coming. It says something like says, states, explains, argues. For example, it would be something like, as stated in King's essay, comma, open quotation marks. Then you have your quote, which is succinct, directly relevant to the point. I usually say between 7 and 10 words long. Don't let it be a block quote. Don't let it be super long unless you're writing an essay that's over 5 pages long. And even then, maybe even over 10 pages long. Then you can start using block quotes. But for the most part, the essays that we're writing in class are so short that you don't want to spend too much time on somebody else's words. You want to spend time on your own words. Then we have our in-text citation, which is usually author's last name and page number if we're doing MLA format. Remember that there's no comma in the in-text citation. All of this together, these first 3 points, is one sentence, right? We want our lead-in sentence, then the quote, then the in-text citation, and then, you're not done yet, you need your analysis and connecting sentence. It makes a connection of significance to help the reader and transitions into your own argument. This is the important part of the quote sandwich. The quote itself is your evidence, but the analysis that comes after is your essay. That's the important stuff. That's your own voice making that connection. Critical thinking, showing us your logic, making your argument. That's this sentence. It's one of the most important sentences in your essay, is the stuff that comes after your evidence. So what does this look like? Model sentence. So your lead in, King, this is from Dr. King's letter from Birmingham jail, which I often do with my classes. King is concerned about the constant concessions asked of Black people, arguing that, colon, so this is not a full sentence. We're going into our quote. Arguing that, quote, wait has almost always meant never, with our page number, because we've already introduced this somewhere else in the essay. So all of this together is one sentence. King is concerned about the constant concessions asked of Black people, arguing that wait has almost always meant never, period. Analysis. This shows the obstacles the Black community has endured and explained why King feels justified in taking actions now. Right. So this is telling us exactly why King is talking about this stuff now. And we're going to transition this into some larger connection to our own world today. This action can still be seen today in the protest by Colin Kaepernick, who was told half a century after King to wait. Optional second quote and analysis. So some of my classes, like when I teach at Rutgers and we're usually analyzing 2 or 3 essays at once, go lead in sentence quote analysis, transition, lead in sentence quote analysis, and that's how we make our paragraphs, right? You can do this in your own paragraphs. A lot of the times though, we're just looking at 1 or maybe 2 sources. And so you can also just spend the rest of your paragraph in analysis, having another few sentences, analyzing what the quote means in context of the essay and in context of what it means in terms of your thesis. Things to avoid. Failing to introduce the title of the work and the author. I don't know why my students do this, but they do it all the time. The title of the work and the author should be introduced in the introductory paragraph. That's why we call it the introductory paragraph. And yet, a lot of people forget to do that. Do not forget. Once you introduce the full title of the work and the full name of the author, then you can continue to talk about the author by their last name and the title by an abbreviated name. Starting a sentence or a paragraph with a quote, you need context. That's why we call it a quote sandwich. It is sandwiched between other things. You cannot start a paragraph with a quote. If you do, that's a huge red flag that tells me that you do not have a main idea or topic sentence. Without a topic sentence, where are your key words? What are you talking about in this paragraph? Why am I looking at this quote? Who's saying this quote? I don't know any of that stuff. So make sure that you're not starting a sentence or a paragraph with a quote. And on the same vein, do not end a paragraph with a quote. Shouldn't end a sentence with a quote either because you need your citation, but do not end a paragraph with a quote. Remember that you need to follow every quote with some of your own commentary or analysis. This is the important stuff. If you're ending a paragraph with a quote, that's telling me that you do not know how to do analysis. And analysis is why we write essays. That's your argument. That's why I'm reading this. And so people ending their paragraphs with quotes tells me that they are unwilling or unable to do the analysis. And I know that you're able to do it. I know that you are. You have ideas in your head. You just got to put them down on paper. So do not start a paragraph with a quote. Do not end a paragraph with a quote. You are missing important stuff if you do that. That's why we have our sandwich. Quotes in the middle. Another example. The lamb loved Mary. So loved is our keyword or key phrase that we're going to be proving throughout the rest of the paragraph using the examples from our text. The poem states, everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. The lamb loved her so much he could not bear to part from her. Very easy, very quick little analysis, but it's true, right? We have this little bit of analysis that we can infer from the evidence that is stated in the text. Now, go back to your own papers and try to write a full quote sandwich. If you have any quotes that you've already pulled, turn that into a full quote sandwich. My favorite thing to do, my favorite essay hack, is when you're writing essays, write your thesis and write 3 quote sandwiches. Once you write those things, you have an outline for your paper that's pretty robust. The only things that you need in addition to that is topic sentence, some more things in your introduction, maybe a transition sentence or 2 at the end of a paragraph to sort of transition from one idea into another. Your conclusion, of course, but that's a video for another day. But once you have your quote sandwiches, you have the meat of what you're doing in your essay. In an analysis essay, there's nothing more important than having the evidence from the text shine. And that's what we're doing with our quote sandwiches. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you learned something. Bye.